Over to you, Tasneem.
Thanks, Diane. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the main stage. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us this afternoon. We're super excited to take you through a few other things that are going on today. And I have the absolute pleasure of running through your reflections for today. So we hope that you've had a really great time so far. I've heard some conversations going on, and I'm really inspired by your energy. I'm inspired by your insights. So I hope that you are also inspired by each other. So before we start, could I get a quick temperature check? If you're feeling good, can you send me a thumbs up? And if you're feeling great, can you give me a heart? And if you're feeling like Tasnim, you need to pump up the energy a little bit more. You can give me like any other reaction that is not of the above. Okay, Christy, I see you loud and clear. All right. Thank you, everyone. I will dial the energy way up. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to our reflection session. So today's reflection is pretty simple and straightforward, and it's an opportunity. We would like to provide you some space. So basically, this reflection session is for you to unpack what you've learned. It's for you to reflect not just on your own. So yesterday's session, we closed with a personal reflection. So you had time to think about and write down what were some insights that you had. Some of you might not have had any insights, and that's completely fine. Even after today, some of you might not have insights that you want to take away. And again, that is completely fine. This session is really about, really for you. What would you like to take away from it? And we invite you to think about that. So today, the reflection is going to be a little bit different. We won't ask you to reflect individually, but rather we're going to put you into small groups so you can chat a little bit about what are some things that you took away from the sessions. So Diane will pop the questions in the chat so you can keep referring to them. But we'd like to invite you to not only share, but also use this opportunity to really build and strengthen this community. We feel like when you reflect in a group or when you reflect with your peers, you can realize that you might have learned similar things, or you might have learned the exact same things expressed in a different way. And someone else's perspective might build on top of your own understanding, and your understanding might help someone else to create more depth in what they've learned today. So the questions that we're going to ask you are to think about what you have learned over these past two workshops, and even yesterday, if you want to bring that up. And we'd also like to ask you to be prepared to capture 3 to 5 ideas that stood out for you and your group members. So for those of you who've just joined, thank you for joining our reflection session today. Yesterday, we reflected individually on our own, and today we're going to put you in groups so you can reflect together. Reflecting together helps you build on top of each other's ideas, find similarities in things that you learned, and just kind of like is a great opportunity for all of you to just build a really strong community. So again, we'd like you to discuss what you have learned and be prepared to capture 3 to 5 ideas that really stood out for you and your group members. You'll be assigned into random groups of 5, and Diane will help me do that later. And we'll give you about 10 minutes and just, pop in the chat if you need more time, because we do understand that, sometimes these conversations, you might get more inspired and you might want to talk a little bit more. So we'll give you about 10 minutes to start, and we'll have a look at how the energy is going and how the conversations are going. And then after that, when we bring you back into the main room, we're going to ask you, each of the groups, to share a few things that you took away from the session, or a few things, the 3 to 5 ideas that stood out for you. We'll ask you to share them in the chat. And, if anything stands out to anyone in the room, you're welcome to call it out and we can talk about it a little bit more. So really trying to create a space for discussion and building on top of others' learnings here. Okay, if we don't have any further questions, I'm thinking, Diane, do you want to wait like a minute or two? Yeah, let's put on the music, get like energized and groovy. That last song, I really like that last song. And I'm just like still reeling off of the energy of that song. But I see people are still entering the room. So we're going to maybe spend another minute and let people catch up, and then we'll pop everyone into their respective groups. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had really meaningful and insightful reflections among your groups. So we've only got 4 minutes to go before I let you out for a break, which is important in a digital environment, especially. So, okay, here's what we're going to do next. I'm going to ask at least one person from each group to write down 2 things. And if you want to do it separately, that's fine too. I'm not going to be super crazy here. But if you can write down at least 1 or 2 key things that you took away from your respective breakout room in the chat. Don't click enter. Just type it in first. All right? Type it in first. So if you can start typing in what are your key takeaways from the reflection, what are some thematic takeaways from your breakout rooms, start typing it. Don't hit enter yet. Okay. And yes, do turn on your cameras and don't hit enter. Okay. All right. Okay. Jaish, that's okay. You're forgiven because you said something very nice. I'm good with that. All right. Okay. So can everyone just give me a thumbs up to indicate that you've written your takeaway? Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Now, the count of 3, I'd like you all to hit enter. Okay? 1. So you hit enter on 3. 1, 2, 3. Love these insights. I'm just going to read out a few, and just so that we can get equal representation from everyone who's kindly submitted their thoughts here. The first one I'm seeing says systemic change takes time and takes intentionality, and it is possible. I absolutely love that reflection, and I think all of us having gone through the sessions today can somewhat agree with that. And I think maybe, systemic change is such a big topic on its own that maybe we need to organize another forum about it. I'll talk to Diane after this, but I'm so glad that you brought it up because it is so true. It's such a big, scary monster, but actually it is possible to bring about systems change, and I love that. I love that energy. Shana mentioned it's important to bridge the gap between changemaker movements and organizations and government institutions to ensure that these movements translate into tangible policy. And second, it's important to realize the position of privilege many changemakers come from and how they can ensure their work and efforts are beneficial for sustainable change in their communities. Shana, thank you so much for highlighting these very, very 2 important insights that sometimes we do tend to forget about. And I think perhaps a lot of us can agree that sometimes we need to take an exercise in stepping back and acknowledging our own privilege to be able to be in a space like today, to be able to connect with each other, to be able to have internet connection, to talk to each other like this. This is a position of privilege that we're all in. And what can we do with the privilege that we have to translate that into good for all? And if you like any of these things that people are saying here, send us a heart, send us a thumbs up. These are really, really exciting insights that your peers today are saying. Bina from St. Pauli, hi Bina, mentioned that being present for others is important. And again, for me personally, and I'm sure perhaps all of you can relate, being present is really something that is super important, especially in these days where we're all kind of like strewn in different parts around the world, around the country, around the region, and even being digitally present is so important. I think one term that some people tend to use is holding space. So being present is also about holding spaces for people to just speak, to just say things, and you are there to be present, provide space, and listen to them in a non-judgmental manner. Jayesh, because you were the first one who popped it up. This course is very nice. Speaker is also very nice. Thank you so much. We will put this at the top of our feedback list when we submit our report. And finally, because we are at time, I'm going to call out one last piece of insight that I'm just seeing right now, is that behavior cannot be changed, but we can develop new behavior. And I think that's a really interesting kind of like discussion to have about things that are intrinsic and things that are extrinsic, and also things about like what is innate and what can be developed. So we really hope that through this forum, through the conversations you're having with each other, you're learning new skills, you're able to gain new perspectives, you're able to kind of like hold space for people and develop certain kind of empathy. Now, oh man, I really wish I could go through all of these, but like it's kind of hard because there's so many really, really great insights. So have a read through the chat. And again, we'll compile all these insights and key takeaways and send them to you in an email or put them up on the platform for you to review them if you'd like. And if you scroll through the chat and you want to reach out to maybe Gabriel, for example, and be like, Gabriel, I loved your insight, completely agree, you know, and take the conversation offline, we heavily encourage you to do that. Don't be shy to slide into each other's DMs on Zoom. All right, so we are at 3:02. And I think we're all due for a bio break, a stretch break, a tea, like a very short tea break. And we will come back at 3:15. But let me kind of like introduce you to what's going to happen next. We'll take a 15-minute break, and then we will go into the final segment of the Changemaker Forum. And again, I'd like to thank you all for your really insightful reflections, for your energy. And you're welcome to stay in here. But do remember that the next segment will start at 3:15, where you'll learn how to translate all of these insights, all of these skills that you've picked up, all this knowledge that you've picked up into action through the ACT session, which will be led by Rajesh and Alan. And then, of course, here our closing fireside chat, where our speakers, Kiran and Tongyi, will answer all the questions that you have upvoted and asked in the Q&A Mentee link that we've put out. So thank you again. And we will see you back here in 15 minutes.
All right, good afternoon. Let's do a big stretch really quick. Just lift your hands up high. Let it go. Let's do it one more time. And let it go. All right, so I'll start us off by saying that, you know, when we thought about this event, which was almost a year ago in the making, we were still unsure about what this event should be about. Was this event supposed to be about inclusion, diversity, or the future of work, or the environment? And then we came to this realization that, you know, it's not about the issue, nor is it about our understanding of any issue, because we have more information than we clearly know what to do with. So this forum on change making is about us. It's about you, the change maker, and it's about we, the community of change makers. If we are to influence the world around us, we must first understand our collective spirit. And we gave great thought into what brings us together. And the answer is change-making skills. We may have different issues that concern us, and we may have different approaches to making change. Yet within our differences, there are similarities to making change. And yet within our differences, there are similarities in which we do change making. Ashoka, our partner, has been actively involved with youth. And through their own research, they came to understand that really great change leaders could make a difference, had 4 specific tendencies. They are conscious empathy, collective teamwork, new leadership, and practicing change making or creative problem solving. And it's these 4 change-making skills that serve as the foundation for this event. And in this exciting 2-day virtual event, you had the opportunity to see these 4 change-making skills used by different change makers from various walks of life. And you had the opportunity to practice these skills in your 2 experience workshops. Well, we're now going to talk about how do you bring these 4 skills together to create change. And you'll have noticed that all change makers actually use all 4 of these skills in interesting ways. And we have for you today a publication that was written specifically for this convening. And we call it the Changemakers Toolkit. And it is a recommended pathway that you can take towards creative change. And it shows you the skills and activities that you need to do to use together to move forward in your change-making journey. So the activities in this guide are not to be done on your own, okay? So these are activities where you must come together to solve a challenge. So when COVID-19 is finally in the past, maybe you organize a change maker party, or you go through the activities with a group of friends. If you're a parent or if you're a teacher and you're interested in teaching leadership, innovation, creativity, change making, you can have your own students go through these worksheets and you can guide them through their leadership journey. We created this guide because we understand that the process of change making is riddled with confusion and you will lose your way. And there are many things that can go wrong. So this guide was intended to make change making with the 4 skills easy and intuitive for all. And aesthetically, we've designed this guide to make the process of change making fun and interesting and non-intimidating. But the reality is that anybody can do these games and activities. In fact, these are adult activities. But just like anybody can learn a language, anybody can master a hobby like cooking or an art like painting or a sport like football. Everybody can be a change maker. Before I talk about it, I want to acknowledge the people that have helped put this guide together. I want to say thank you very much to Ishan, Iputu Wiraguna, Rajesh Varghese, and Imawan Rahadianto. Thank you for making this publication possible with your efforts in writing, in putting the book together, and in the conceptualization of the exercises. So this particular guidebook has a map. Okay, there's this map that brings you through the 4 change-making skills. And here you start off at the cave of empathy. And this cave is a dark place. It's a very ambiguous space, but so is our understanding of others. And so we have to sense our way to the light. We have to sense our way to understanding others. And in the world of social innovation, we also understand each other through the way we experience challenges and problems. So you see, identify the problem, and the missing word here is together. And then you also use empathy to know your team. And we saw some great examples yesterday about how Faye and Glenda do it. But in this guide, we will show you simple and fun things that you can do to know your team. And then as we progress on this journey here, you'll notice we arrive at the leadership. Okay, so new leadership. It's about making others into leaders. If each of us is a ship, what is it that allows each of us to sail? But we also need to understand that within a community, there is also diversity. And within that diversity, power, privilege, authority is never equally distributed. And some of us require more wind to sail. And how do we empower those? At the leadership, you practice. Sorry about that. At the leadership, you practice dialogue to arrive at understanding what each of you are good at and what your roles should be as change makers. You make commitments as a leader, and you have to do that because in new leadership, only you can tell yourself what to do. And then next, we arrive at the change makers oasis. Okay, here, this is where progress can only be made. Okay, we're at Teamwork Village. This is where progress can only be made when we all pitch in by learning and committing to action together. And this is where we learn about the problem together. This is where you actually do, which you actually do at the beginning, but you also have to learn about the system together. And here we need to understand that problems and systems, they don't exist within a vacuum. And there are things that will help us to arrive at a changed state as quickly as possible. And these are things that will hinder us as well. So the context is everything around us. It's the physical space, it's the culture, it's the government, it's all the other players that may be working with us or against us. And so if we were, for example, to talk about vaccine distribution to rural communities, the sharing of resources between countries, would help us with that effort. But misinformation and the transmission of conspiracy theories about the vaccine motivated by fear might be a hindrance. So as a team, we need to learn together and we need to chart a course together. And so you need a solution, but you don't know what the solution is just yet. But at least you have agreed upon what is your desired outcome and what a good solution does. Does it take advantage of your opportunities? Does it mitigate your obstacles? And then we finally arrive at Changemaker's Oasis, where we're going to imagine and we're going to create ideas and possibilities that flourish. And this is where we imagine together, design together, and then we make change together. And we arrive at the chest of prosperity, the reward of a newly improved world. So this is a sort of a little map that we show you how you move from one particular change-making skill to another as you're moving towards a solution at the same time. I now want to highlight some of the activities that we have designed to help communities plan their change-making initiatives. And one of these is this one right here. It's called Identify the Problem. It's defining a problem. And you can see problems at different levels. Now, if you're a beginning change maker, of course, we're encouraging you to start small. Start at whatever level you feel you are comfortable at. Maybe you want to create a sustainable household with your family. Maybe you want to get your school cafeteria to remove single-use plastic waste. You can also do something that benefits your community. Maybe you transform your void deck into a community garden, or maybe you create a space to share food with those that are a little bit more food insecure. And of course, if you want to play big, if you want to tackle climate change, world peace, and you have the skills and the passion and the communities to do so, then there's nothing that's stopping you from doing that as well. But eventually, you have to decide on your issue and where you want to go and where you want to be. We also have an activity where you have to understand the problem by doing a problem tree exercise. So if we were to understand the problem of COVID-19, we might realize that while it has highly adverse effects on your respiratory system, in particular, probably finding a way to help those people breathe better does not solve the problem because you're addressing a symptom rather than a root cause. But what if I began to ask why? Okay, why are these individuals not able to get treatment and they've died? Maybe the answer is because the hospital did not have the resources to take care of them. Why are the hospitals full? Because people are not being vaccinated. Why are people not being vaccinated? Because the government is not able to get vaccines for a sufficient number of people. Why can't the government get vaccines? Because they cannot pay market rate like smaller, wealthier countries can. So as you go deeper and deeper, you begin to understand the inefficiencies and the opportunities for you to intervene. And then we have this activity in this guidebook that encourages you to get to know one another through art. Okay, you'll visually represent your spirit and have a conversation. And the whole purpose of this activity is not to necessarily understand how we are different, but actually who we are. Because what you'll learn as a group is that each of us represents something about the whole. And your team can go a long way when you know who we are and you celebrate who we are. Another activity that I want to point out to you is you're going to learn how to hold dialogue, and there are rules of engagement. And then there's a chart that you can fill out where you determine your role on the team through dialogue. You discuss things like what you're good at, what you would like to do, what your team needs, and then you put that role in the chart, and then you determine the commitment that you will have as a leader. For example, I will organize 5 conversations with local community leaders, or I will organize a prototyping session. And then we also talked about the importance of learning together. We have an activity called Heroes and Monsters. Okay, so heroes are your opportunities. It could be, a supportive government. It could be, growing global concern and interest on a particular issues. And then we also have monsters, the inhibitors. So, if we're talking about COVID-19, for example, then sharing resources between countries would be a hero. And then misinformation might be a monster. And so this exercise, will encourage you as a group to think about how your heroes can help us and then how you can mitigate the obstacles. And then you come to a point where you have to make a decision-making criteria. Where is your solution going? For example, you can state, I want a solution that reduces the cost. I want a solution that protects people from getting sick. It gets vaccines over to last mile populations quickly and affordably. You determine what you want your solution to do. And of course, many of you know the importance of design thinking. And so there will be a point where you brainstorm possible solutions, but then you need to weigh your ideas against decision-making criteria and then anticipate the pros and cons of each of the best options. There are different ways to design depending on whether your intervention is a process or if it's a tangible process, it's a tangible product. And then at the end, everything will be summarized on this concept sheet here, where you can put down your name, your team members, you describe your solution, what it is, how it works, who do you need to succeed, what is the current state, and what is your desired future state? How will you know that your idea has succeeded? You'll have to describe ways to measure its effectiveness, list down alternative ideas which you've came up with, identify the challenges, your resources, and then write down your steps. And then at the end, you put everything together into a plan. So at the end of the day, this is a toolkit. It's as committed as you are. I would like for you to think of these activities as an invitation to think. It's put together in a structured but concise approach to help you do change making. So thank you very much. And I will be taking questions at this time.
Quite a few people putting in the group chat, Alan.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for the great resource. But please, guys, if you have any questions about how to use it, we have about another 3-4 minutes or so. Please do ask away, ask it in the chat box, or just ask Alan. Turn on your mics.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is something that we definitely we're definitely keen on using it. In the survey at the end of the day, if you're interested in learning more and also maybe being part of a pilot team, do volunteer and we'll organize an event and we'll be sure to invite you. I'm just wondering if there were any activities that you saw in the book that I went over that might be of interest to young people in helping them to be change makers.
Alan, maybe I've got one question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The bit on product prototyping, could you speak a little bit more about that, especially in the context of services or when people are change making around something which is not a tangible product?
Yeah. So so the whole idea of prototyping is to understand, is really to get a feel for what you want to do. So you have a concept, but you really want to think about the how, and you want to really think about the specifics and how the specifics work together. There's no wrong way. There's no right or wrong way to do a process, and how you decide to prototype is up to you. For example, if your task was to design a process by which you can go through airport security, you might do a simulation. If it's a program and it's broken into parts, you might have a flow chart where you chart your process on a piece of paper. But for others, like if they want to build an eco village, then they can build like a replica. They can do a small thing, and then the whole idea is that I think when you go beyond when you go beyond language and you really begin to play with your product or your process, then you get to fine tune and you get to think deeply about the specifics of it. And so that's the whole challenge of the exercise, is to really is to really think about how it's going to work in all of its complexity. Okay, so someone says a small suggestion might be to have an accompaniment with stories on how certain projects succeeded or not when employing tools in this guide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ellen. I think the deck is super well written and concise, and yet creatively colorful. My question is, in terms of prioritization, assuming that some of us have multiple types of interests, so it could be multiple areas of change that we wish to create. What is normally a thought process or helpful tips in terms of deciding which ones should be at the top of priority? Because we only have 24 hours a day.
Yeah, so as Changemaker, any project is tough, right? It takes a very, very long time just to do one. And we recommend just one project at a time. And we recommend that you do something that is feasible and that you build up, you scale up. We don't want people that, like it's like lifting weights, and sometimes you have to start small, and then you have to work your way up. So it's also not just considering the priorities, but what you are able to do with what you have at this given point in time. I hope that answers your question.
Otherwise, Alan, I'm going to take it back, and I think our final speakers for the day are just joining the room. So let's just give them a couple of minutes to join the room. Hi, Tongi. I think we're just waiting for Kiran and Rajesh to join us back in the room. We have here Kiran and Tongi, two social entrepreneurs that have been able to really create big impact and have really worked in this environment of social impact for many, many years. So Kiran, Tongi, I'm going to pass it over to you guys to answer all the questions that we have collected over the last 2 days. Over to you.
Thank you, Diane. Let's see. Is it just me? Is Kiran's screen on yet? I can't see her.
Hey,
Now,
I think...
can you see me?
Yes, we see you. Great.
Yay.
Over to you guys.
Excellent.
Okay, Diane, I'm going to share screen. Let's see.
Hi, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. My God, this is a lot of change makers here. Tongli, we are going to be in trouble.
Maybe we'll see. Okay, hi everybody. We actually have, can I just check again with the organizers? How much time do we have exactly? I think I requested for just a slightly bit more.
Tongi, you have time till 4:20.
Yes.
Until 4:20. That is 40 minutes, right?
Correct.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, hi everybody. We have the very challenging task over here of actually addressing multiple of these really powerful questions that you guys have been asking. I took some time over here, I think from 1 o'clock today. I took about maybe 2 hours or so just reading through each and every one of your questions. And what I did over here was I began to cluster the questions together in a way that maybe can bring more meaning to the questions that than you had initially intended as you first asked. So the clustering of the questions is really my work. It's not one that really has an intention itself of beginning to bring in more meaning than it really should. But I think when you see questions in contrast to one another, actually it's quite fascinating to see, I think, the kind of polarities that you guys are really starting to work with and to dwell in, right? I've also taken the liberty itself of some of the longer questions to summarize it down to some core words. So if basically you do see a question to a state that's unrecognizable, and I have maybe completely destroyed your question, right? Can you please just let me just bring your voice into the chat and let us know that that's not the intention of your question, and I will definitely address it from that point. So what me and Kiran are going to do over here is I'm going to set some context first for you as we go through this. And we had a conversation before we started off this entire session by saying we want to be as authentic as possible. And honestly, I like, if you can, try not to treat us as like I don't know, sages or gurus or whatever the case
Experts.
is. Yeah, because, it's gross. Yeah. I think as far as change making is concerned, or social innovation is concerned, I doubt there are many people who can really claim themselves to be experts per se. This is too challenging a field right now, especially in the flux that we are in. Not just the pandemic, but just generally the state of the world. And what you might maybe borrow from us over here is experience, and maybe a larger, broader view of how we begin to see things over here. But I don't think we can necessarily claim that we have the right answer per se. So our intent is really just to have a chat with each other. So me and Karen will be talking, and we'll be responding to the questions that we see from page to page, okay? And as we do this over here, what we want to say is that I personally, I don't know about Karen, would really like to honor each and every one of your questions. So if for some reason itself, right, because of time, we're not able to finish all of the questions, please feel free yourself to either email me or Karen. Karen, are you open to them emailing you? You are? Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
And we'll get those questions there. Also, I'm concerned that with the brevity itself of some of the responses, that it doesn't actually really capture the depth of what you're asking in terms of your question. So again, I think mentorship or mentoring or any form of like a longer conversation is always available. Just make the request, and I think me and Karen itself will try to make time for you. Yeah, especially if you want to take this kind of change-making stuff seriously. Okay, so this is the format, okay? You guys have had almost about 30 plus questions among all of you. And in the 30 plus questions, what we've done is that I put it into 5 main pages. So I have roughly about 7 minutes for each of these particular pages to go through. And what me and Kieran are going to do is that upon every page that's being flashed, we will spend just a minute reading through the questions, taking some notes, and seeing what our first impressions upon the questions. And I'd like you just to invite you to do the same. So there'll be a minute of silence after each time we flash a new slide. Just read through the questions, see what pops out at you. And then after that, we'll just speak from there. Okay? Kieran, Ken? Ken, okay. So let's just
Let's go. Yes, Ken.
Okay. So we're just gonna start a minute.
I have to also say, Tongli, that with the kind of quality of questions, I think they're well on the way of being change makers. I never had these kind of questions. Okay, are you going to go for the first one or me?
We're just going to take a quick minute just to for everybody just to read the questions and take in the data first. Then after that, we're going to speak. Yeah, so maybe just read all the questions first. Okay. Kieran, you want to go first? I'm okay.
Okay, I'm going to take, I'm going to take this question that often dogs a lot of people is, are change makers successful and do they make money? And I'm not quite sure these two are necessarily sort of one or the other. I find that when you pursue something you really are passionate about, and if you do a really good job of it, money, so you can, I think if you're starting the change making by saying how much money will I make rather than how much impact will I generate, it might not be the right lens by looking at change making. So I would say impact, and as you start measuring impact, you will realize that your money or whatever you want to get from it will come from that space. Tom, that?
Yeah. Karen, can I just check with you or the rest of you guys? Is Karen breaking up for you guys? Or is it just me?
Yes, she is. Yeah.
She is, right? Yeah, I don't know whether it's your internet connection.
Is it better now?
It's better now, but just now was really bad.
We have really bad internet. We had a massive storm last night.
All right, okay. We'll try. Okay. Yeah, so maybe let me take a shot at this set of questions here.
Is it better now?
Yes, it is better.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, I was just basically making the distinction between impact and money.
Right. If I could just jump off on that particular piece over there, I find that the variables that go into whether somebody really makes money and whether or not change makers are successful there are just too many variables there. I do a lot of social enterprise work over here, and I think about maybe if we're looking at what of the 6 social enterprises that we have, each one of them do make money. I do have salaries right now. I have a salary that's comparable as to some of the more high-level civil servants. I'm not making shitloads of money, but I'm definitely making a strong living for myself. But I really think that for myself, it's really a question of the strength of the business model, the clarity itself of the change I want to bring. So the truth of the matter itself is that the change that you want to bring, the more it sits on a minority level, which means that the more it is on the fringe, the more it's that it is brought from a very unique place of pain, the more challenging it is itself that you're going to have people that would translate the cause that you're fighting for to actual financial terms. But if you are meeting a collective pain, which means over here you've identified something that people are genuinely willing to just, take my money, help me solve this, yeah, you're likely sitting above where the market gap really is. So really the question itself of whether change makers are successful and whether they make money, it's a question of what gap you've really identified, and the client in which you're serving, and I guess the business models in which you're set up. And if anything over here, the platform for this itself is not one where we have enough time to really go to the depth of business models over here. But the short answer is yes, there are many, many change makers, right, who are making huge loads of money. Yeah. I do echo what Kiran is saying, though. If that's the motivation you're starting off with, as opposed to basically looking at some level of pain that people are going through, trying to alleviate that pain, I don't know. I tend to be a bit more liberal to understand over here that people like Elon Musk, people like Jeff Bezos are change makers. Well, they certainly have changed my world. Yeah. But the more social that you begin to lean over there, yeah, I think it's hard for us to really define that. Yeah. Anything else, Kiran, that you want to pick up from?
No, let's go to the next one.
Actually, I was really hoping we could just pick up those questions around the privilege, because I did find myself emotionally reacting to those bigger questions. Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting point, because I don't know whether the question is being posed by saying, are we in a more privileged sort of lens, and are we standing on a privileged standpoint and giving advice? So I think, when you start off, it's not about privilege at all. It is about purpose. And so when purpose drives what you're doing and you create a certain impact, you have a certain influence. I don't think it's privilege as much as influence. And you must relook at the way you look at impact and your purpose by saying, am I now in a space of influence where I can influence either policy or the landscape? So I'm not quite sure privilege. I remember when I started my school or started Design for Change, nobody was standing with me at all. And that's really, it really doesn't matter. And you have to ask yourself, are you doing it for a motive that is not purpose, but is it about recognition? Then it might not be giving you enough fuel to go the long run. So I would say privilege is not necessarily the right way to look at what work you do, but influence. I think impact and influence are better words to think about the work. That would be my response to that.
I think the question that they were asking over there is that really that it is a luxury that the wealthy or the more powerful have the ability to say we can change. But multiple people who come from much more poorer environments or who are less advantaged, they basically just take the cards that life has dealt them. And the question is asking whether or not, right, that change is really just accessible to those who have the power to do so. Yeah. And those who don't have the power to do so, they just suck it up. Yeah. And
I don't believe that at all. I think if I look at just the amount of people like Ashoka, the Ashoka Fellowship, I've got the kind of social change makers have been the ones who have been the most impacted by the situation. And they're the ones who, because it's so personal to them, like you talked about pain, it's so personal and intimate as a pain, they set out to make the biggest changes. You have to understand that you are not designing for people, but with people. So I don't think change making is an act of privilege. Yes, it's easier if you already have a certain influence, it just opens up doors a little bit more. It gives you a little bit more fuel. You're right. But I have seen some of the most remarkable change makers coming from a space of deep pain who set out to make that place a better place. So I would say, I would encourage you to look at what bothers you and set out on that journey, and just go from there. So that's what I have learned.
Yeah, I actually took I'm going to be a bit provocative here. I actually took some offense at the question. To what extent is the ability of change a privilege of the wealthy? The reason why I was saying so over here is because it's not a question of wealth. I find itself right that it's a question of power, and I find that the poor or the disadvantaged or the disabled can be as powerful as anybody else. And I found over here that
sorry, I think I'm losing everybody again.
Yeah, it really is a question of power. I also felt over here that are there times over here where I feel that I speak from privilege? Yes. The question itself is whether or not I'm conscious of it. Being Chinese, male, older, coming from a wealthy family, and which I do. But I find over here that at a time of like this right now in my life, I'm going through pretty, I think, serious mental health issues. And I find myself that a lot of the power in which I felt a year ago are no longer here. And I think we go up and down in terms of our places of power and privilege constantly. And power and privilege is very, very contextual. So I think given the systems that we are part of today, there are definitely some people over here who definitely don't experience some level of power. But I do find itself right that with how the world is moving, context is changing very quickly. So yeah, context is really changing very quickly. And I noticed over here that I'm very aware that when I'm operating from power, I'm operating from privilege, but I'm also aware itself right when that power is taken away from me, when I shift into a different context. Yeah, and we must be clear about that. Yeah, I don't think anybody ever holds complete power or privilege. It changes from context to context. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Tony. Just to let you know, I think Kieran's internet dropped her off. We're just trying to get her back now.
Sure. Do I proceed?
Yes, please proceed. Yeah.
Yeah. So while we're waiting for Kieran, I think there's also another question over here to ask. How do we know that what we do will eventually achieve the purpose? And the sad answer is you don't. You don't, and that's really where the risk and reward is. I parallel it with the question of whether you're successful or not, right? Because if somebody really is successful, that's because they took the risk. And if you think over here that we can plan this ahead of time and we know the purpose of it, and I find that I've been doing this work for 22 years already. Everything is clear in retrospect. But honestly, when I was first doing it over here, I had no freaking idea what I was doing. And I didn't know whether or not I would actually hit that particular point of purpose there. Obviously itself has changed immensely itself right from the beginning of when I first started it. Yeah. So less privileged youth can be change makers if they come together itself, right, and they form tighter groups, stronger, I guess, basis of power. Yeah, so that they can be heard. But generally speaking itself, right, try not to let wealth get in the way or let class get in the way. I do find over here that there are many ways in which basically power can be grown, right, or built up. Yeah. Welcome back, Kieran.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting patchy network. Really, really sorry. But this is, if somebody can ever change network, no, that'll be the best change maker. So
let's try.
Okay, which question do you want to go?
Yeah, I can move to the next slide.
Which question are you taking?
One sec. I'm moving to the next slide.
Okay.
Is everybody in Singapore right now? Or
I think most of us are in Singapore, yes. So maybe
okay.
Tongi, until Kieran comes back, you can just go on to the answer.
Sure. Let's run a few questions over here. Okay. I like to be quite straightforward itself when answering these particular questions over here. Social impact work or social innovation work is essentially in areas where you're dealing with intangibles. You are dealing with how do I increase trust within society? How do I come to a space over here where people feel more included? how do I make sure itself, right, that the suffering of a divorcee is somehow lessened? And if you're looking at itself at any one of these particular issues over here, right, they are, because so much of it is an eye of the beholder. And if I say, for example, that, you know, I now have a better relationship with my father, how do I measure that? Or how do you measure love? Or how do you measure anything else like that? And the funny thing about this over here is that some of you have asked this question, that you are surprised by saying that you found that many of these change makers don't really begin to measure their work. And for me personally, we don't actually do impact measurement in a very serious or strong way. And the reason why we don't need to is because we don't take government funding. Primarily, as long as we're operating essentially from a place where we're not taking public monies, a lot of the need for measurement, right, or investment is coming essentially from enterprise models. But if we're looking for funders, if we're looking essentially for more, you know, social impact investing, then yes, you're going to have to begin to actually measure a lot of these things. So first, be aware of the fact, right, that a lot of the need for rigorous, you know, measurement comes from where you're getting your funding from. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, is the advantage itself of measurement and impact? Surely itself, after 20 years of knowing this, I do want to know, you know, whether or not there's some impact or not. And yes, it comes to this place over here where there is, but the measurement that we have is a question of the network that we are part of, as opposed to really whether or not we are trying to answer to some university or some other place itself, right, that's trying to measure the impact of the work. So it's fascinating over here, right, because I was just jumping out this question where someone asked, how can we be sure that what we do is not already being done by others? But if you're really serious about impact, you want other people to do exactly what you're doing. And you're not doing social innovation because you want to be new. You want to do social innovation because it is creating impact. And I don't think many of these people itself, right, who are currently on this particular platform right now, you're listening, you're at the scale where you can even imagine impacting 100,000, 200,000 people. When you are at that size, then yeah, okay, you could be some sort of monopoly. But the beginning itself, right, I would actually really hope that more and more people are doing more of what you're doing. And you are even jumping on itself, right, to actually, I guess, stronger impact by thinking about the network. And what we've learned over here, right, is that our way of measurement is really through that network. That because I've got peers who are doing exactly the same thing as me, I can begin to actually learn from them, compete with them, collaborate with them. But without the ecosystem, it's very, very difficult for me to actually understand whether or not I'm creating impact or not. So I want to begin to actually look at the ecosystem. So if you're in this mindset over here, right, where you think you want to do something new, I would ask you to reconsider that particular intent over here. Yeah, very little itself of the social impact work that we'll be doing in the world is new. It can be innovative. It can be a new way itself of approaching it over here. But yeah, the number of players that you will see itself right, doing this is quite considerable. Also, there are, yeah.
Just jumping in, Kiran had an electric failure. She just noted it to us. So just to let you know, but I see her coming back in actually. So just to let you know and be mindful of her sound, okay?
Yeah, no worries, I will. Yeah. So I think Kiran is still jumping in. There's also another question over here that why is it that many of them don't actually really measure the impact evaluation? Well, when you're first beginning, and I want to say this from a personal level, a lot of the work you'll be doing is quite humiliating. You may not necessarily know even what is it that you are doing per se, because you're new, you're trying it out, and having someone poking their heads around and trying to measure everything, actually it can feel a bit like an imposter. And I want to say this quite authentically, right, that consider impact measurement a bit later on in the game. Be free to innovate, be free to try, be free to do whatever you're doing over here, right? But if you're going in straight to a funding model and someone's going to ask you how you're going to measure, you can be caught in a lot of false reporting when you're not really even sure what is it you're doing. And it becomes a game over here that's not worth playing. It becomes a game where you're simply just trying to please your funder, yeah, as opposed to doing the kind of impact you're supposed to be doing there. Yeah.
I'll also probably add that very often funders and require impact, and all your purpose start changing to suit the funder and the need. And that can be extremely dangerous for you. And so all the work that you get done because of the funding and you have to suddenly move to scale, it can be extremely, extremely seductive because you need the money on one hand, and then you also don't have the kind of impact that and the bandwidth to measure that. So as Tong says, be careful. Remember that you started it for the purpose you did. Impact will come. It might take a little slower at certain times, but don't get seduced by the funding that will then shape and change the amount of data and what you will be measuring. So just keep that as a bit of a caution line for yourself.
Yeah. I love the word she's using over here about trying not to be seduced too early. Yeah, it's like saying, can you measure how much you love your wife? And then they'll just say, oh, okay, let's measure it by how many dates you go on. And then you're screwed. so you have only one good date after a month, and then therefore you don't love your wife. Oh, just kill me. Okay, so
yeah, that's true.
right?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Because then you start doing too many dates for not wanting to spend any time with her. I don't think that love will last too long. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I'm going to move to the
another
next slide. But I do want to make a quick comment, right, about dealing with egos, and that people who are coming into your work, some of them bring in basically just the need to actually puff up their resume as opposed to actually really doing impact work. I take a more broad point of view. You need these people. If they are achievement oriented and they are image conscious and they are coming to a space over here who want to do this for their resume, try to see them as an ally as opposed to basically someone you want to push out of the work. You are basically all for social impact and social good, right? But you don't know how to brand, and you don't know how to actually create good story, and you don't know how to tell a good story. You're screwed anyway. Yeah, and I've learned to come to a space over here, right, to try not to judge people with different intents. If you keep running the language of bad intent, good intent, I think you will find yourself with very, very poorly networked, as opposed to basically whether or not intents can be aligned. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'll also add that don't fall in love with your idea. Walk into a room, walk into a room for a collaboration, really open to understanding how the idea will win, not how you or the other one will win. So it's really not a competition, right? So really don't fall in love with the idea. Be passionate, absolutely. But remember to walk in with an open heart and an open mind, because you never know what can foster in that creativity.
Amen.
Ask me.
Also, lastly, on the question, the trust with the public sector, I find that too complex a question to answer immediately here. But yeah, the short answer is I learned the language. I didn't come from public sector, and I didn't know how they talked and how they speak and how they think. But I spent 6 years learning what is going on. Yeah, and right now I'm on a new phase where I'm learning how corporates begin to speak. Without learning the language, you can't permeate those political boundaries. Yeah, you speak a social sector talk with the public sector, they will spit you out.
Yeah, for me, I think you have to show up. Remember, nobody wants your idea. Okay, and just start with that. If you are wanting people to be interested, then you have to show up, even when the things are not good. So I remember learning so much that, right? And that permeates because everybody wants to be what I call a selfie activist. I want to land up, take my little selfie photograph and then just put it on Instagram. And so there is a sense of wariness and weariness, both for this sort of activism. So I just remember that keeping on showing up, removing your ego, your idea deserves all the merit and not you. So just keep pushing forward with understanding, not only like Tong says, the language, but also the intent. They don't want you, you want them, you have to show up.
Kieran, because of time over here, we're actually surprisingly only got 10 more minutes. Holy crap. Is that right, Rajesh?
Yes, just 10 more minutes, Tongi.
Okay, good. Kieran, I'm gonna flash the last 2 slides over here, so I skipped one.
Okay, sure.
Look at this one and see what jumps out at you.
How to collaborate? Let's start with a simple one, because often change makers feel alone. So how to collaborate with other organizations like your own. I think that's I've realized another thing that I learned very early on is, again, go in with an open heart and mind and understand that there will be overlaps. You might have to give a little, you might have to take a little, right? So if you go in by saying, no, my idea is the way forward, you will find collaborations will be difficult to foster because each change maker is anyway struggling with bandwidth, struggling with funding, struggling with anyway doing their own work. So they can't pretty much take on somebody else's idea or work. So it's really, really important to figure out that where are you willing to give in a little and take a little. Reach out, present yourself and say that I would love to explore how we could collaborate together, start with a small pilot if possible, not like the whole big thing, right? And find out what works for each other. I think that has served me very well, yes. Tom?
Yeah, I want to find the exact question on collective leadership, because there's a really interesting phrasing that people are making. There. Okay, so I'm going to read this out, right? And this is really for the benefit of everybody. The question was actually asking for 22 people had actually liked this question. It's just saying a lot of energy has been put into like collective leadership. And are there cases, right, where if we want to have this collective leadership where everyone to step up, that we open the space, but people are not willing to step up, right? And in doing so over here, because they're so used to top-down leadership that they just don't feel it's like they want to come in and begin to collectively do things together, right? Okay, let me flip it for you. In every leadership style that we have, whether bottom up or top down, you're going to face resistance whether you like it or not. The season that we're in right now in Singapore's development and I'll be clear, okay? Many countries in Southeast Asia still need top-down leadership because that's the phase of development they're in. Singapore is now looking more and more at bottom-up, but don't be seduced by the idea that bottom-up is better than top-down, because it really is a question of the season of growth, right, that this organization, system, or country is really in. So the fact of the matter itself is that any form of top-down is a centralized model. The centralized model simply means over here that yes, there's stronger controls, efficiencies, you make shitloads of money, you know, you are able to codify, repeat, replicate, you know, scale, all these kind of things over here. As long as it's centralized, you get North Korea, right, on one level. And to say itself that North Korea is bad, right, is, I think, throwing a baby out with the bathwater. Because a highly centralized system like China has multiple different advantages. So you look at India, you look at China, they're very different leadership styles, right? But if you look at these two countries over here, right, the question is that Singapore has benefited for 50 years of top-down leadership. Now we're in the phase where we're looking at bottom-up, right? So either way, you will face resistance. Top-down, you will face resistance from bottom-up. You will ask for bottom-up, there are people itself who want the top-down. And you will find over here, right, that actually you're not looking at people rejecting the collective leadership space, but rather you need to start convincing more and more people in Singapore that, you know, we need to start shifting to this space. It's not because it's a better model, but because of the model of where we are right now. And the amount of diversity we have in the country cannot take top-down leadership anymore because it is too blunt an instrument, and we need many, many diversified solutions. So the truth of the matter is, that's where the leadership challenge really is. How do we get people who are not used to stepping up to really begin to step up?
Yeah, I would probably add to that, for me, I've learned that leadership is really not about hierarchy or age or longevity, right? And that's really where we've typically been told that if you've been the longest, if you speak the loudest, if you're the oldest, you get to lead. I think leadership, I have learned with great humility, is about competency. And that is not something we generally tend to elevate or support or celebrate, because it threatens us, like you talked about power before, right? And it's extremely seductive to feel powerful by virtue of, you know, having those perceived power dynamics. Moment you dismantle those power dynamics and understand that leadership is about competency, then you just have to get out of the way, right? And I think that generosity and that belief in an idea which is larger than yourself and your nose then allows for that sort of, you know, collective growth and thriving. So I feel it starts with very small places, right from your home, you know, whether the parental dynamic between gender plays, and you start seeing how gender power dynamics work out. You go to school and you're told about hierarchical power dynamics. You go to a job and you have those power dynamics. So dismantling of power dynamics is extremely difficult. It's extremely dangerous, People don't like to dismantle power dynamics, right? It serves our purpose. But if you've understood anything about collaboration, it is competency. That's going to take you the long mile. So I would say start in a small way to taste that, and then shape it as you go forward to mimic that and to encourage that in whatever you do. So that's a very powerful lesson I learned, and I've often been so grateful for just being taught that very early on with the dismantling of power. And I think that has served me well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tongi, just to jump in before you move on, I think we have a few people saying that they're willing to stay on until the clusters are finished. So I think we'll just finish the cluster. Everybody's so excited. So everyone, if you don't mind giving us an extra 5-10 minutes of your day, so Tongi can finish Tongi and Kiran can finish the rest of the clusters. Back to you guys. Sorry for jumping in.
I'm actually okay. Is Kiran okay with a bit of exercise?
I think another 5 minutes would be great.
Sure.
Considering I was jumping in and out anyway, so I lost my 5.
I do want to say something about this whole slide over here, though. You are looking at multiple of these questions. We're dealing with the same themes. This is a really deep topic, and I put them all together over here, right? Largely because it's primarily in the field of complexity and diversity and organizational development that you want to look at your learning. That I want to apologize ahead of time. There's no way we'll be able to answer these particular questions within the span of a platform like this. But there's tons of learning and training already on how to handle diversity and bring it together, which is why that very first circle on top, I want to apologize to whoever wrote the question. It was so hilarious for me. I was like giggling for at least a good whole 5 minutes or so.
Believe me, I've been there. All of us have been there. How to pull all members to constantly engage. You can't, as long as you really do. Yeah. And I'm saying, really?
Okay, so if you guys want to know the model for exhaustion, there's the top question up there.
That's the one, yes.
That's the model for exhaustion. The language.
That's burnout right there.
Pull all team members to constantly engage.
Yeah, no, we are joshing here right now with you, but we're kind of just we've been there, right? I think Tong and myself, and of course anybody else who's run something has wanted to believe that everyone is super excited and everyone is equally charged and everyone believes. It isn't true, and that's the beauty with team sports. Everyone has a different role to play. It's like playing football. There is a coach, and there is a bench sitter, and there is the goalie, and everyone needs to pull up when it's needed. Everybody doesn't have to run towards the goal, right? So if you know your role in the team, you play that well, and especially when it's needed the most of you. So just keep that in mind, that it doesn't have to be high energy, high thing. I think Google sort of gave us a wrong idea that everybody is having the best time sitting on little beach bags and eating out. No, that isn't true. That isn't needed at all. I think the idea of common purpose is the biggest lighthouse that gives us hope when we are, going astray or feeling tired or feeling a little exhausted. But like a team, each one has a role, and if the vision and the purpose of the goal is equally clear, each one will pull up its role. So I would advise whoever the lead in that group is to constantly remind the team about the lighthouse, not what to do, but why you are doing it. I would say focus on that.
On a personal note, I'm in a space over here where I am genuinely very tired and broken from the work that I've been doing the past 20 plus years. I'm on a brink over here of considering quitting and literally just changing career. And it's exactly what Kiran said. Without purpose, there is no way I can stay in this game.
Yeah.
And I say this from a really authentic space over here. This work is not easy. It's
not easy. It's
like shit sometimes. Yeah. And if you expect to have constant high energy and things like that, you have bought the Google Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. In fact, I have felt so exhausted, and of course, for me personally, I do believe that there is my own lighthouse, and it happens to be Mahatma Gandhi. And when I look at him, and I have his cutouts, in the school area, and And when I'm deeply pained and exhausted and feeling a little burned, I look at him in the eye and say, my God, how did you do this for 40 years? And I'm just talking about this after 6 months. So I think in many ways, drive your source, your deep source pool of purpose from, peers, from each other, from, just the work you do. And you will find that joy is not about constant high. It's just about deep pools of purpose. So yes, been there initially when we thought we all had to play games every single day. It doesn't work that way anymore. So we're not doing that. But I totally see you, Tom. And I can feel what you're going through. And I've been there, and especially this year was super challenging. So I'm reaching out and giving you a big virtual hug at this point.
Okay, let's move to the last slide and let's finish this.
Yes.
So before we shift over here, I do want to give a last note just to say it again. Don't underestimate diversity. It really will be the pain of what you'll be going through. So these questions that you're having over here, they are a gem. If you really can start to explore these questions deeper, I think you're going to start building up the skill sets necessary to keep your work going. Yeah, okay, they are really important questions. Okay. Kiran, that center question, I think you should take it to, did success hurt you? I really found it a profoundly important question.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I have an issue with the word success anyway. So I think there's such social constructs. I'm not a fan of anyway, and I don't think those are the narratives or the lens by which you look at your work. I would look at impact and significance. I would ask you to change that. If it ever you are getting, again, I like the word, which I keep using, seduction, because it's so easy. It's so easy to fall in the trap of presentation of what you do rather than living what you do. So has it hurt me? Well, I don't think it, I didn't do it for approval anyway. So I frankly am fairly immune to people's approval. But yes, it offers its own challenges because it then demands of you to continue to show up every day. It's not about the other, but it keeps telling you you're now at a level of influence. That means you can be a voice that can be heard. And then you must use that voice every single day with integrity. And sometimes you're so tired, and sometimes you're burnt out, and sometimes you feel fatigued, and you still have to show up, because that's what this purpose, this work has given you. It's given you that opportunity, it's given you that platform, it's given you that voice. So use it well, use it intentionally, use it with integrity and authenticity. So it'll only hurt you if it doesn't, if it's not true. If it's authentic, well, there will be ups and downs, but it'll never hurt you. So that's what I have seen, yeah.
For me, I maybe because of the season I'm in right now, I found it a profoundly rich question to look at. I wrote down 4 key things that whether success hurt me. The short answer is yes. There are a few things. The first thing over here is living the projections of people.
Don't do that.
There's all these projections that people have that you're freaking Jesus Christ, and they think themselves that they, especially when you're successful, they'll keep elevating you. And believe that you can solve quite a few things over here. And that is something where you cannot imagine the internal self-doubt that it started to create for me. Yeah. So I found over here that the more people elevated and projected that I was, some sort of solution maker, the more I had to find all sorts of coping mechanisms to try and cope, because I felt like such an imposter.
I've been there. Oh man, I've walked into rooms and I've wondered, what the hell am I doing here? I mean, for example, we're right now talking to all these change makers. How did we land up here? Why are they listening to us?
Right?
It's like the imposter syndrome, but yeah, I know. Don't be kinder on yourself.
Yeah.
Be kinder on yourself. This is a long marathon. It's not a 100-meter dash. Yeah. So enjoy it while you can. So yeah.
The other fascinating thing I found here, I don't know where you can identify with this, that when success came, ironically, the people that I began to work with in the initial onset began to feel intimidated by the success.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We're like kindred spirit, my friend. It's like, You're absolutely right. My God, how did you do it? You're not even qualified. And God forbid, listen, I'm running a school without having an education degree. I mean, imagine what kind of what I've been through. So you're absolutely right. There's a sense of intimidation coming from, how did you do that by yourself and in this short time? You know, all of those questions that you never even knew were rules that you were breaking. You just did it because it felt right. It felt important. It felt urgent. That's all motivated you. And it was so interesting to see that. But yeah, you know, I don't take it personally. So that's one thing I would encourage everybody. Please, it's not personal. Yeah, it's not personal. The idea needs the whole of you.
I found it very challenging because I do my work because I want to reach out to the ones that are forgotten. But when I became successful, the ones who were forgotten didn't dare reach out. They became scared and felt, oh, you're too big to reach.
Oh my God.
And I thought it was such a horrible irony. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think again, I remember I happen to be, I'm a TED speaker, and I didn't know TED speakers have some hairload, you know, position. And I remember when people would reach out, and I'm very good with response, right? I immediately respond. So when I respond, people, there was a sense of disbelief. And I'm thinking to myself, hello? I mean, what has my role got to do with anything? So we've been through all of that. But I will just keep encouraging you to understand the voice you have, exercise it with integrity. Like Tong says, and that means your voice has to be as clear and as loud and as sustained as it can be, right? You're not screaming it, but you're telling a powerful story. So just keep your vocal cords intact, keep gargling and steaming every day as a metaphor of self-care. And you won't even know where the time goes. I'm still having such a great time. Every morning I wake up and say, oh my God, I've woken up, I have another day. So that's okay. Last question, do we take? And then
well, on to our last 3 minutes. Maybe just last question. Anyone?
I'll put on my video now.
Any other questions shouted at you?
How do you? Any tips on managing burnout? We just kind of spoke about. How can introverts build their confidence, energy, and leadership? Oh, this is such a lovely question. I think most change makers are introverts. I have to say that, because the extroverts are so busy selling something and not telling it. So I feel the introverts, this is our time. Whilst I think, and I don't know, Tong, if that's correct for you, I am actually an introvert. You know, my work expects me to be full and in person, but I love my time. I love just the quiet that comes, and I love the fact that I can just, you know, take my time. So I think it's not to do with your personality. It has to do with your passion. So it doesn't matter what personality, what type of person you are. Look at Mahatma Gandhi himself. I can't think of a bigger example of an introvert who managed to make the world shake up with gentleness. So I think believe in what you bring to the table, honor it with integrity, stay true, and show up every single day wanting to do the best you can. That's all the world needs, my friends. Don't take the pressure of change making on your shoulders.
Yeah. I have a very strong bias for introverts.
Yes.
I am highly introverted. In fact, I quite hate
exactly. Exactly. Lovely. My God, this is so awesome. I mean, I love talking to you, Tong. This is so wonderful. Thank you.
Tongi, there's a question for you in the chat. You said you have 4 points, but apparently you didn't finish. It's a clear indication that everybody's listening to you. So can you finish those 4 points?
I just wrote down 4. I lost contact with the initial base that I was working with, and it took me about 5 to 6 years to re-establish contact because people were so afraid of or at least I created new platforms by which to reconnect with the people which I was initially trying to reach out to in the first place. The second thing was living the projections of people. I felt I was living their agenda as opposed to living mine, because once you're successful, everyone wants to use you. Everyone wants to use you one way or another for their own schemes and plans. The third itself was how hard the fall is, that when a mistake comes, you get crucified. Yeah. It's the same way that Bill Gates does it or whatever the case over there. And I think anybody itself who has experienced success, they'll be able to relate to this. This is not my story. This is just the nature of how what success brings. And the last thing is just the internal health law. My internal health did not catch up with my external success. So those two things, they have to go hand in hand and in parallel. So when I don't do my self-work and I don't grow into internal confidence, then the internal success becomes pressure as opposed to something that supports you. So those are the four. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I also learned the difference between stress and stretch. You know, the stretch is the work that demands you, but the stress is what you put on yourself. So I do remember, I think around 10, 12 years ago, I broke down. I had a brain hemorrhage. And, you know, I remember the doctor telling me, you know, Kiran, you've been running your mind like a BMW now.
She froze.
Yes, I think Kiran has frozen.
She just froze there.
No, yes.
That was a
Any
really important
last...
thing from her.
So while waiting for her to come back, I'm just going to answer the quick ones, right? Do we need technical skills beyond change management skills? This is a bit of an Abu Dhabi question. Yeah, the answer is yes. A lot of your technical skills, whether or not it's about, you know, I don't know. My technical skills go anywhere between writing, graphic design, my OD skills. These are all things I've built qualifications in and started to build. They are immensely important, to have. They are also technically what people will pay you for. So a lot of your business models over here will come from actually your technical skills. Yeah, your change management skills over here, they are the T. Yeah, you have your technical skills, but your change management skills are up here. So that's where your T-shape will come from. So the innovation will come from essentially from that base. Any tips on managing burnout? I don't think anything beyond what is already available on the internet. This is quite a no-brainer sort of thing over here, but I think my biggest tip for you would be do it. Actually manage the burnout. I think when I got caught up in the success of what I was doing, I didn't manage it well enough.
Yeah, but also I think I would also encourage,
Yeah, go.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the burnout question, I think, since all of us have experienced it in different ways, a mother feels it, you're as a new parent, you feel you've got so many exam pressures. All of us have experienced that. And I think there's no greater way to understand the idea of what gives you that sense of flow. So I find those moments of, you know, those joy, and remember that you only have today, and that's okay. You know, you land up, you do a good job today, and genuinely understand that if anything COVID has taught us, it has truly moved everything about plans. All those fantastic 5-year plans, etc. Man, you know, it just given it a toss. It said, go take a hike, you know, all of that. So I say, I mean, that's one thing that has reiterated to me that you have today. Wake up, smile at the day, open up your arms to it and say, okay, I will do the best I can today. And if you can leave the place a little kinder, a little bit less, I mean, a little bit more healed, I think it's a great way to manage that burnout. You just feel a lot better. Yeah. And stay authentic. I mean, it doesn't matter. I've learned that about myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
That very last question about ideas and resources, I personally find it too deep a question to begin to answer on this platform. But if you are, whoever asked it and you're really curious about it, you can just email me. I'll try to make some time to meet together with you. Okay, I am done. Rajesh, Dian, Kiran, there are no more slides of that, but I think we're more or less done.
That's it.
Yeah.
Can we see both of you in a gallery view?
I think we did good. I think, Tong, we did good.
Tongi, Kiran, can we see both of you in a gallery view? Like, Tongi, if you can stop sharing your screen. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tongi and Kiran, for the lovely conversation. I think it'll be great to get everybody into gallery so we can take a quick photo. So if everybody, we're not ending yet, but if everybody can please turn on their cameras so we can take a quick photo of everybody. It's going to take some time because I'm just going to cross over to different screens. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, smile. Just give me some time, you guys. 3, 2, 1, smile. Other people who are in the team, please help me take photos too. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, you guys, one more. 3, 2, 1, smile. Last one. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, you guys, Tongi, Kieran, thank you so much for such a good conversation. I saw so many people saying how this has been a phenomenal conversation, a conversation that we haven't actually heard in a while. So thank you for being so truthful with us and being so open and so candid with us in this conversation. Just give me 5 more minutes, you guys, 5-10 more minutes to close this forum off. I'm going to invite Tasneem, Rajesh, and Christy onto the main stage with me, and we're just going to ask a few questions before we go off. Okay, so Christy, Tasneem, and Rajesh, I'm just going to see if I can get Christy and Tasneem onto the spotlight. Yes, all 3 of us are in the spotlight. Okay, before we end off, you guys, Tasneem, I have a question for you. What's the question you want to ask to Rajesh and Christy?
Thanks. I absolutely love that your question to me is like, what question do you have for Christy? And I love it. So anyway, I've had the opportunity to just kind of like watch different conversations happen, but as a wrap up, I'd love to get Christy your thoughts on what are for you some key insights and some key takeaways from the last 2 days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, thanks Tasneem and Jan, and thanks everybody. It was just an amazing 2 days. Just briefly, I think a lot of the things that I've been taking away, whether it's the power of community and the power of pooling resources, cross-generational, working together, changing mindsets first, building awareness, just being conscious of whether some of you were saying privilege, actually Tongi was saying your position of influence, just where you're coming from and who you are seeking to serve by partnering with them. All of these things about empowerment, actually, I think everyone will probably come up with similar, like, oh my gosh, that was profound. But I have to say what has struck me the most as someone who has also been around for a couple of decades in the social impact space is the absolute huge importance to take care of yourself. And that's where this session with Tongi and with Kieran, I cannot tell you as an older person and looking at all of you guys with your lives and your energy in front of you, take care of yourselves. And especially if this last year hasn't taught us anything, it's none of us are immune from, we think we're sturdy and robust and we've got great support systems, hopefully, and maybe we don't, but do not underemphasize how important it is to take care of yourselves so then you can go out and do the amazing work that you want to do. So to be honest with you, that's not at all what I had planned to say for that question, Tasneem, but based on the last hour, I would say I cannot begin to tell everyone how important that is. So whether you're 18 or 15 or 55 or 65 or someplace in between, cannot tell you how important that is. So, and what a privilege and a blessing just to hear this message and to be reminded of that. So you guys go out and change the world, but make sure you hold on to your own sanity and take care of your health. That's what I would say. Yeah, and love each other. I like that, Stasha. Absolutely. Love yourself, love each other. It sounds airy-fairy, but dang it, it's so true. Absolutely. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Christy. If I could just add real quick to that, it just reminds me, one of my professors used to end his classes by saying, take care of yourselves and tell your loved ones that you love them. And every single class, every single week. So I think that's a really, really nice message to leave us with. Thank you so much.
Quite funny because I think me, Tasneem, and Rochelle were just having a conversation. I was like, we love how everybody in this room is giving each other hearts and really kind of building that community of love. So that's really great to see. Now that we have this community of change makers, this community for change making, where do we go from here? Where do we go from the Changemaker Forum? Rajesh, I want to ask you, what's up next for the community?
If you ask me, I don't know. I think with that conversation with Tongi and Kiran, they just really made me believe that it's about authenticity, right? So that conversation was as brutal, as blunt can be. So thank you very much for that conversation. When we designed this forum, we wanted to do this online. And you know, our biggest challenge to do anything online, how do you keep it engaging, energetic, and having 115 people still here on a Saturday attending this gives me great belief, right? So with that belief, I want to say that the journey, we want to continue this journey, right? This is just the start. The Changemaker Forum is just the start. We want to see change making multiply in your schools, in your homes, and it has to be as organic as it can be. So that's the first aspiration. The second one is one logistical aspiration is after this forum, we're going to send you something called the Changemaker Index. It's a simple evaluation tool to baseline you on your skills, to know where you stand and how you can improve yourself and get better at what you do. So those are the two starting places. But I think I have a request for you. Can we stay in touch? Can you connect back with us? Can you tell us your stories? Tell us what's going on. Tag us on social media. So even if we don't know it, at least let change making multiply wherever you are.
Thank you, Rajesh. And I think, as you said, please communicate with us on Instagram, on Facebook, on all our social media platforms, but also email us whenever you want. And on top of that, we have an amazing Telegram group of all the change makers that came to the Changemaker Forum. So please, we will keep this Telegram group open. So please continue communicating on here. Now, to close the forum, I'm going to pass it over to Tasneem.
Thank you, Deanne. So when we started the forum, we asked you to put down your intentions, what you'd like to learn, what you'd like to achieve. So if you could spend a few seconds to look at the intentions that you had set in the beginning of the forum. Spend a bit of time to locate what were your intentions and spend a few seconds thinking about whether or not your intentions have grown from yesterday. It's been like a day and a half, but you know, it takes no time at all for you to grow and evolve or change. Has your aspirations grown? Have your intentions been met? So I'll give you a couple of seconds to kind of like look at the word cloud, and don't worry, we can send this to you if you want to see what were people's intentions for the forum. And you know, feel free to put in the chat if you feel like your intentions have been met, have they been exceeded, were they not met? Also, you can fill in our feedback form later. Thank you very much with that. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're happy to share this again with you. And another thing that we started the forum off with was Deanne invited all of us to just spend some time and breathe. So we had a day and a half, very high energy. You know, you move from different stages to different rooms, to different sessions, and talking to different people and learning all these skills and getting inspired by Kiran and Tongi and learning about like how important it is to take care of yourself and manage yourself as a change maker. So now to kind of like wrap up, I'd like to invite you to get comfortable in your seat and take a few deep breaths with me. And if you could close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, close your eyes and visualize all the wonderful people you've talked to and connect with. Imagine finally being able to meet them one day. Imagine the hugs you'll give. Now inhale all that hope in and exhale all that hope out to everyone. Think about all the warmth and good vibes that you've been sharing with each other today. Inhale all the good vibes in and exhale all the good vibes out. And for one final deep breath, take the deepest breath you've taken today. Think about all the love you felt these past few days from the people here, from your family, from your pets, and other people in your lives. Inhale all that love in and exhale a lot of love out. You can open your eyes now. Well, I don't know about you, But despite connecting with all of you over a screen, I really feel like we were all in the same room. And a big thanks to all of you for keeping our spirits high, for engaging. Thank you for showing up and for holding space for each other and for joining this community. So for one final thing, please leave a parting message in the Zoom chat, or I'll count to 3. And as Diane did in one of the other rooms just now, you're welcome to turn off your mics and just like yell it out to the universe at a volume that is suitable for your household. All right, okay, pop it in the chat, get ready, get your lungs ready to tell the world. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Just give me a second.
Changemaker.
The best, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now one final thing. Please remember to fill in the feedback form for D2. The link will be put in the chat, and we'll put up the QR code later. And also, we love the energy. You're all vibing, and we don't want to cut that. So you're welcome to stay here, and we're keeping the room open for another half hour for you to continue networking. And as Diane said, we have a wonderful community on Telegram as well, and that's a great way to really quickly get connected and really quickly stay connected. So please do join our Telegram group to stay in touch as well. You'll be receiving an email from us in the coming week, and you'll be able to access all the links to all the recordings. And then, we'll discuss together how do we continue building this community, a wonderful group of change makers apart from the Telegram group. We really hope to see you again soon. Take care of yourselves and tell your loved ones that you love them.